You ever have one of those nights that feels too perfect? Like the universe wrapped the sky in velvet just for you? Yeah, that was the night I turned 38. My wife, Miranda, insisted on throwing a surprise party, except it wasn't a surprise because she told me to dress nice, be ready by 7, and act surprised, for God's sake. That should have been the first clue. Nobody begs for authenticity unless something's fake. But I went along with it because I still believed we were just in a slump. 8 years of marriage will do that to you. Highs, lows, and long stretches of meh. I thought we were still in the trying phase. She, apparently, was already into the sequel, without me. So there I was, walking into a rooftop bar lit with fairy lights, city skyline humming in the distance. The place looked like Pinterest and Spotify had a baby. Jazz band in the corner. Soft laughter everywhere. She nailed the vibe, I'll give her that. Friends, drinks, even my favorite bourbon. Neat, of course, because she remembered. Miranda looked incredible. Burgundy dress, hair swept back like she belonged on the cover of a wine magazine. She kissed me on the cheek. On the cheek. Not the lips. I clocked it, but didn't let it show. Not yet. Happy birthday, babe, she said, and her voice had that forced warmth that makes you feel like the turkey at Thanksgiving. Decorated, carved, and hollow. But I smiled like an idiot. Toasted with the guys. Laughed when her best friend Lauren made that dumb slideshow of Logan's greatest hits, college football, our wedding, our dog Chewy in a tuxedo. It was corny, but sweet. Then came the gift. Now, look, I'm a simple man. Give me a decent watch or a steak and I'm good. But Miranda stood up, clinked her glass, and said, I wanted to get Logan something unforgettable. The room hushed. Cameras out. And she handed me this small, black envelope with a silver wax seal. Open it, she said, grinning like a magician about to pull a rabbit or a betrayal out of a hat. Inside? 2 tickets. To Iceland. I blinked. We're going to Iceland? She beamed. No. You are. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. Who's the second ticket for? Oh, it's a solo retreat. 1 ticket's for you. One's for your baggage. Everyone laughed. Me included, though I had no idea what she meant. She leaned in, whispered, time to find yourself. Lord knows you've been lost for a while. I remember that line vividly because it was the first moment I realized something had shifted. Something I didn't understand yet. But I would. I'd understand everything. Soon. I didn't go to Iceland. Instead, I went home and sat on our living room couch for 3 hours, still holding that shiny black envelope like it was some ancient prophecy. The silence of the house pressed in like fog, and the whole solo journey, things started to reek of more than just motivational Pinterest nonsense. Miranda came home around midnight, smelling like wine and citrus. She was humming. Not our song, some pop hit about letting go. Did you like the gift? She asked, already toeing off her heels by the door. Depends, I said. Was it for me or the version of me you imagine when I'm not around? She didn't answer. Just walked past, cool as frostbite. And that's when I knew. I wasn't just paranoid. I wasn't overthinking. I was late to the party, the wrong party at the wrong house, where I was the guy who brings ice and finds out the wedding's canceled. The next morning, she left early for a strategy session with her team. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at a half-burnt bagel and wondering when exactly my marriage had expired without a courtesy email. That's when I found the SD card. Now look, I'm not one to snoop, but this wasn't tucked away in some drawer. It was sitting right on the windowsill above the sink like it had been forgotten, or like someone wanted me to find it without actually handing it to me. I popped it into my laptop. Half a dozen folders, all coded with vague names like client_A and Q3_research. But one folder stood out. It was labeled JM. Not initials I recognized. Not any coworkers, at least not any she'd mentioned. But curiosity, that beautiful devil, grabbed me by the collar. I opened it. Photos. Not dozens. Hundreds. Hotel rooms. Candid shots. A few selfies. Her smiling. Him shirtless in the background, like a shadow that finally stepped into the light. A few pictures had timestamps. Weekends she claimed to be at yoga retreats, networking conferences, or helping her sister move. There was one photo that knocked the air out of me. Her, wrapped in a robe, standing on the balcony of a room I'd helped her book. That trip to Portland she said was so exhausting? Turns out, not so much. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen like it was a confession. This was it. The confirmation. The evidence. The answer to every gut feeling I'd shoved into a drawer marked, "Don't be crazy." But I didn't cry. I didn't throw the laptop. I didn't scream into the void. Instead, I closed the folder, stood up, and poured myself a drink. Noon or not, I figured betrayal gets to break the clock a little. As I sipped, a strange calm settled over me. I wasn't just sad. I wasn't just angry. I was ready. Because now, I knew the truth. And I also knew something else. She didn't know I knew. Not yet. And that made me the most dangerous man in the room. 3 days passed. 3 quiet, ordinary, beautifully staged days. Miranda didn't notice a thing. She kissed me on the cheek in the mornings, made her protein smoothies, laughed at her phone like the world was just a carousel of inside jokes. Meanwhile, I was playing the role of loving, clueless husband, so well I deserved an Emmy. I backed off emotionally, just enough. No dramatic cold shoulders. No sulking. Just stillness. Stillness is terrifying when someone expects chaos. And she didn't know what to do with it. Then came Friday night. She asked if I'd be free for dinner. Just the 2 of us. I made reservations, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Figured we could reconnect a bit. Talk. That word held 1,000 knives now. But I smiled. Sounds great. We ended up at a quiet Italian place she used to love when we were dating. Same dim lighting. Same soft jazz. Different motives. She was dressed to kill. Burgundy dress again. Like a callback to my birthday. I wondered if that was intentional. Like she was trying to reset the clock, pretend nothing was rotting underneath the tablecloth. Halfway through the meal, glass of wine in her hand, candlelight in her eyes, she leaned in and said, "Logan, I've been thinking about us." "Oh, have you?" "I think we've been disconnected lately. And I just want you to know I still care. Deeply. I don't want to give up on what we have." I sipped my water. "So, no Iceland then?" She paused. "Maybe not right now." "Right. Because James wasn't done with her yet." I nodded, playing it cool. "That's a relief. You had me worried you were trying to send me on an emotional vision quest." She chuckled. "No, just, I wanted you to have space. Time for yourself. You've been carrying so much." She wasn't wrong. Just didn't realize she was the weight. Then the waiter brought dessert. Tiramisu. 1 plate. 2 spoons. Cute. And that's when I said it. "Miranda, who's James?" She blinked. Slow. Controlled. But her hand twitched. Just once. That was all I needed. "James," she echoed. I smiled, steady as glass. "Or is it Jacob? Maybe Jeremy." "I noticed the jam folder on your SD card. The one with the hotel photos." Her spoon froze in midair. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was electric. It hummed between us like a live wire on wet pavement. "Logan," she began, but I held up a hand. "I don't need you to lie. I don't even need you to explain. I just wanted to see your face when the mask slipped." She opened her mouth, probably to deliver some carefully rehearsed half-truth about finding herself, but I wasn't in the mood. "I'll pay," I said, standing. "Consider it my final romantic gesture." She stared up at me, stunned. I could see her brain sprinting to catch up. "You're just walking away?" she asked. "No," I said, leaning in close enough that she could smell the calm fury on my breath. "I'm walking through you." And I left. I didn't look back. Because now she knew that I knew. And this was where my part truly began. They say the truth sets you free. That's cute. The truth doesn't set you free, it hands you a shovel. And what you do with that shovel, that's up to you. You can dig yourself a nice little hole to cry in, or you can start planting. Me? I chose seeds. Revenge, after all, is a long game. And I wasn't playing checkers anymore. After that dinner, Miranda didn't come home. She didn't even text. I half expected a dramatic monologue in my inbox the next morning. Maybe something typed out at 2 a.m. with just enough vague remorse to keep the door open. Instead, silence. She knew I knew. I knew she knew I knew. And we both knew neither of us was going to blink. It was a strange kind of peace. But peace, my friend, is just the calm between explosions. That Monday, I called my attorney. Now, I wasn't filing anything yet. Not officially. But I wanted to understand the chessboard. Miranda and I didn't have kids. No shared business. No wild assets outside of the house, the joint savings, and a retirement fund I had contributed to 90% of. I had leverage. And I planned to use it. Every nickel, every nuance. She ever been unfaithful before? The lawyer asked casually, like he was discussing the weather. I paused. Not that I ever caught. Okay. Because if you can show a pattern, or that she used marital funds during the affair, it shifts the whole equation. Interesting. Very interesting. Time to water the seeds. I started with her work laptop. See, Miranda used to sync her devices for convenience. Her phone, her tablet, her company MacBook, all linked through the same cloud account. She assumed I didn't know. Assumed I wasn't tech-savvy. Bless her cheating little heart. I waited until she left for work, then used her tablet to access the shared drive. Photos, documents, and yes, messages. Text to JM. Turns out his name was Julian. Julian McCrae. Vaguely familiar. The kind of name you hear at a cocktail party and forget the second you step into the restroom. He was a regional VP for a partner firm. Older. Slick. The kind of man who wears shoes that cost more than most people's monthly rent and says, "Let's circle back," without irony. I read the texts. They weren't even passionate. Just logistics and smugness. Same suite at the Fairmont? He bought me a necklace. I wore it when I met you. Thought you'd like the irony. He's getting suspicious. I might have to throw him a fake crisis. What really got me, though, was the tone. They weren't in love. They were just getting away with it. And I don't know about you, but I can stomach a lot. Boredom. Distance. Even a one-time screw-up, given enough humility. But contempt? That's poison. And these two were sipping it like champagne. The next step was subtle. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I hosted a barbecue. Yes. You read that right. I invited a few friends over, kept it casual. Just beer, burgers, backyard music. And I made sure to extend a warm, personal invitation to one very specific guest, Julian McCrae. Not directly, of course. That would have been too obvious. No, I invited his wife, Emily McCrae. Miranda had met her once. Didn't think I remembered, but I did. Emily was delightful in that perfectly polite, passive-aggressive way only a woman who suspects something but can't quite name it can be. The kind who offers to bring potato salad, then forgets the dressing and blames traffic. She showed up right on time, with Julian in tow. Oh, it was beautiful. Watching Miranda open the front door, wine in hand, smile turning to static as she locked eyes with her not-so-secret lover on our porch. And me? I greeted them both like old friends. Julian, I said, clapping him on the back like we were fantasy football rivals. You remember Miranda, right? He smiled tight. Of course. Always a pleasure. Emily's eyes narrowed. She was sharp. She knew something was off. But not what? Not yet. The barbecue was a masterpiece in controlled tension. I grilled. I joked. I played host like nothing was wrong. But every time Miranda glanced at me, I caught the flicker of panic behind her eyes. She didn't know what I was doing, which meant she didn't know what I wasn't doing. And that's the most terrifying thing of all. Later that week, Miranda finally broke. I came home from work and found her in the kitchen, arms crossed, jaw set. Why did you invite them? To be polite, I said, dropping my keys into the bowl. Didn't you say Emily's good company? Logan. Miranda. She exhaled through her nose like a bull sizing up the matador. Are we really going to pretend you didn't do that on purpose? I looked at her. Looked through her. I don't pretend anymore, I said. She stepped forward. You don't understand it. No, I interrupted. I do understand. I just don't sympathize. She flinched. Just slightly. I walked past her, into the living room. I think we should talk. Not now. Not loudly. Just clearly. And with lawyers. That hit harder than any punch. I saw it in her spine. You're divorcing me, she said softly, like she'd just heard the word for the first time. I shrugged. Unless you can turn back time and unsend about 47 texts to Julian McCrae. Yeah, I am. She looked like she wanted to scream, or cry, or run. But she just stood there. You'll regret this, she said. No, I said, turning on the TV. I regret staying this long. That night, she packed a bag. She didn't slam the door. Didn't say goodbye. And me? I watered the seeds. Because this was just the first bloom. The real harvest was still coming. People assume revenge is a dramatic affair. Fire, yelling, tears. Slashed tires and broken plates. Nah, that's amateur hour. Real revenge is quiet. It's slow. Strategic. The difference between a bar brawl and a chess grandmaster cornering you in 23 moves. And me? I wasn't flipping tables anymore. I was playing the long game. After Miranda left that night, I didn't call anyone. Didn't text my friends for sympathy or post a cryptic quote on social media about healing and letting go. I just cleaned the kitchen, wiped the counters, loaded the dishwasher, swept the crumbs she always ignored. It was weirdly satisfying, domestic therapy with a sprinkle of emotional clarity. She was gone, and the house already felt cleaner. Like her presence had been adding a layer of static I'd never noticed until the signal finally cleared. Then I opened my laptop. Phase 2 was ready. Remember Julian? The man who thought partner firm meant sharing more than spreadsheets? Yeah, him. Turns out, Mr. McRae had a very polished public image. Board memberships. Speaking engagements. A nice little LinkedIn empire built on buzzwords like synergy and vision. So I started gathering. Emails. Screenshots. Photos from their shared drive Miranda never bothered to clean out. Her booking history. Text threads exported and filed. You'd be amazed how much truth fits in a PDF. Then I typed a very polite, very professional email to the board of Julian's firm. Subject line, concerns regarding Mr. McRae's conduct and potential conflict of interest. Attached, a file titled documentation_1. I didn't sign it. Didn't need to. Truth, once released, doesn't care who sent it. 2 days later, I heard he was taking an indefinite leave of absence to focus on family. Cute. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the text he sent Miranda. He's boring. I'm doing you a favor. Funny how boring guys have all the receipts. Meanwhile, Miranda tried to play it smart. She didn't reach out. Didn't try to manipulate me into some messy back and forth. She knew me well enough to realize once I go quiet, it's already over. But she underestimated one thing. Emily. Yes, Julian's wife. The woman with the practiced smile and passive-aggressive salad. She reached out to me 3 days after the barbecue. Subject, we should talk. I agreed. Coffee shop. Neutral ground. No theatrics. She was already seated when I arrived, dressed in a perfectly crisp blazer, one heel bouncing ever so slightly under the table. Nervous energy disguised as poise. I know about them, she said without preamble. I nodded. Same. Is that why you invited us? Yup. She smirked. You play dirty. Only when provoked. We sat in silence for a moment, stirring our coffees like lawyers waiting for opening statements. Finally, she leaned in. I want out, she said. And I want leverage. Now, this wasn't about reconciliation or group therapy. Emily was done pretending. Turns out, Julian had a little habit of mixing business and pleasure, and not just with Miranda. There were others. Assistants. Analysts. One woman from HR who had conveniently transferred departments after a misunderstanding. She had screenshots, statements, names, and now she had a motive. So we made a deal. A quiet one. I gave her everything I had on Julian and Miranda. In return, she gave me a few little gems about Miranda's own financial gymnastics, things I hadn't even noticed. Transfers to a private account. Gift receipts. A prepaid rental on an apartment downtown she was keeping for a friend. So she was building a backup life. How thoughtful. With that information, I went back to my lawyer. Think we can make a case that she was siphoning shared assets? His eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. Absolutely. You ready to file? I nodded. Game on. Miranda received the papers on a Friday. I made sure of it. In the week strong, right? She showed up at the house 2 hours later. Didn't knock. Just walked in like she still had the right. Really? She said, holding the envelope. This is how you wanted to do it? Fair. Documented. Legal? I said, leaning against the kitchen counter. Yeah, that's exactly how I want to do it. Her jaw tightened. You know I could make this ugly. Oh, I'm counting on it, I said with a grin. But just so we're clear, every lie, every dollar, every thread you thought was hidden, I've already pulled it. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. You really want to burn it all down? She whispered. No, I said. You already did. I'm just planting a garden in the ashes. She turned and left. Didn't slam the door this time, either. The following week, her lawyer tried the usual tricks. Let's be amicable. Surely we can settle quietly. Think about your reputations. I didn't bite. I had no reputation to protect. I'd already buried the corpse of our marriage with a smile and a shovel. Miranda thought she could break me, but she forgot something important. I'm not the man I was when she started cheating. That guy would have begged, bargained, asked what he did wrong. This guy? He just makes sure her credit cards stop working before she can book her next little retreat. Revenge has a funny way of reaching beyond its target. You aim at one person, but somehow the blast echoes. People duck. People run. And then, eventually, someone stands in the middle of it, blinking like, wait, this involves me? Collateral damage. I never intended to hurt anyone else. But then again, I never intended to be the fool either. And in war, especially the quiet kind, there are always casualties. 3 days after the papers were served, I got a text from Lauren, Miranda's best friend. The same Lauren who once cried at our wedding and told me I was exactly what Miranda needed. We should talk, it read. Oh, the irony. We met at a cafe downtown, the kind of place that overcharged for everything and served coffee with foam art that looked like it had been painted by an emotional raccoon. Lauren looked nervous. Not like someone caught doing something wrong, more like someone who just realized they'd been sitting on a time bomb. I didn't know, she said as soon as I sat down. Logan, I swear. I didn't say anything. Just waited. She fidgeted with her napkin. I mean, I knew there were things. You two weren't doing great. Miranda said you were distant, that you weren't emotionally available. But the Julian thing? That caught me off guard too. I raised an eyebrow. So you had no idea she was cheating? Her silence was answer enough. I didn't know it was him, she added quietly, like that was some kind of redemption. Right. She looked up, her eyes soft. She's a mess, you know. I gave a small nod. That makes two of us. Only one of us didn't lie about it. Lauren looked away, biting her lip. She asked me to reach out. Said maybe I could talk to you. Try to soften things. Of course she did. Miranda never did like getting her hands dirty. Always had someone else plant the landmines, then acted surprised when they exploded. I'm not softening anything, I said calmly. Not the settlement. Not the facts. Not the fallout. Lauren sighed. Then you should know, it's not just her feeling the fallout. That's when she told me. Miranda had been put on administrative leave. Her company launched an internal review after Julian's sudden sabbatical raised eyebrows. Apparently, someone, had included in their anonymous report a lovely little invoice trail that showed company resources being used for personal travel. Corporate doesn't care about cheating, but they really care about misuse of funds, especially during tax season. Later that day, I got a call from my brother, Mason. He works in finance, private equity. Pragmatic, rational, allergic to drama. He was never one for gossip. So when he called out of the blue and said, "Hey, what's this I'm hearing about Miranda and some executive?" I knew the ripples had reached open water. "You heard right," I replied. He was quiet a moment. "You okay?" "No," I said honestly. "But I'm in control." That's more than most people in your situation can say. He offered to help with a financial strategy. I thanked him and told him I was already a few steps ahead. But what struck me most was what he said at the end of the call. "You always thought you had the quieter marriage," Mason said. "Turns out, it was just muted." Muted. That one stuck with me. That night, I walked past the mirror in the hallway. Stopped. Looked. It's weird, seeing yourself in the middle of becoming someone else. I wasn't smiling, but I wasn't broken. I looked tired, sure, but under that, there was steel. And it was showing. The next morning, I received an email from Miranda's lawyer. A revised proposal for asset division. It was cute. She wanted the house, half my retirement, her car, which I bought, and she wanted me to agree to a mutual no-fault clause in the final decree. A no-fault clause. She cheats, lies, drains our savings, and then wants the paperwork to say we just grew apart. That's when I realized something about Miranda. She didn't fear consequences. She feared looking bad. She wasn't afraid of me being angry. She was afraid of me being loud. So I wrote a reply, not through my lawyer. From me, personally. Subject, on fault. Miranda. I received the revised proposal. And no, I'm not agreeing to a mutual no-fault clause. Let me be clear. I don't want vengeance. I want truth. You don't get to rewrite the story just because the ending makes you uncomfortable. I won't lie in court. I won't lie to our friends. And I won't lie to myself. I gave you years of loyalty. You gave me secrets. So if you want this to stay quiet, I suggest you revise your terms again. Honestly this time. Logan. I didn't hear from her for 3 days. On the 4th day, her lawyer sent a much humbler draft. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. But I did open a bottle of scotch I'd been saving. Not for her. For me. You'd think that would be the end of it. That once the legal wheels turned and the documents were signed, life would go back to some shade of normal. But betrayal doesn't work like that. It echoes. A week after the revised proposal, I got a message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. "Hey, I heard about you and Miranda. I'm sorry. If you ever want to talk, or just grab a drink, I'm around." It was Claire. An old friend. An old almost. And for the first time in months, I felt something that wasn't anger or numbness. Curiosity. Claire. She was the girl who slipped through the cracks of my 20s. Smart, blunt, the kind of woman who knew what wine paired with revenge and what playlist fit regret. We'd kissed once in college on a dare, of all things, and then never spoke of it again. She moved on, I got married, and we both became adults with LinkedIn pages and emotional bruises. So when she texted, I hesitated. But then I thought, what exactly am I afraid of now? We met for drinks. Nothing fancy. Low-lit bar. Soft music. It felt like stepping into an alternate timeline, one where things didn't get so twisted. Claire looked at me the way no one had in months. Not with pity. Not with judgment. Just recognition. Like she saw the cracks and didn't flinch. So she said after our second round, "You burned the castle down. What now?" I took a sip. Rebuilding. Slower. Smarter. This time with fireproof walls. She nodded. And maybe better company? I smirked. That part's under review. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. That night wasn't about starting something new. It was about remembering I was still someone worth starting something with. The divorce finalized on a Tuesday. No court showdown. No tearful confessions. Just 2 signatures and a cold digital confirmation that said, essentially, you are now legally strangers. Miranda didn't show. She signed remotely. Fitting. I didn't expect emotion. I didn't expect a cinematic monologue. But still, sitting there in the courthouse hallway, pen in hand, I felt a strange emptiness. Not sadness. More like standing in the ruins of something that once had a roof. And knowing, you never want to rebuild it. That night, I packed the last of her things. Boxed them neatly. Taped them shut. Labeled everything. Then I donated it all. Not out of spite. Out of finality. Let someone else make use of what was never truly mine. It wasn't enough to walk away. That would have been survival. But I wasn't built just to survive. I needed the last word. So I did one last thing. I printed everything. All the texts. The photos. The receipts. I compiled them into a single document, the affair portfolio. Professionally bound. Numbered. Dated. Then I mailed it. To Julian's board. To Miranda's company. To her parents, who, for years, thought I was too quiet and not ambitious enough for their daughter. I didn't include a note. Didn't need one. The truth, when dressed in evidence, speaks louder than apology ever could. 2 weeks later, I heard Miranda had resigned. Julian? Quietly let go. Personal reasons. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. But I did go to the beach that weekend. Sat in the sand with a beer, phone off, watching the waves erase footprints. That's what truth does. Eventually. 1 year later, I got a postcard. No return address. Just a beach. A scribbled line. You always did love sunsets. I laughed. Not bitter. Not sad. Just amused. Miranda, still trying to haunt me with sentiment, as if nostalgia was a ticket back in. But ghosts only scare you when you invite them. I tossed the card in the trash. Claire was inside, making dinner. My life wasn't perfect. I wasn't healed. But I was whole. And the thing about betrayal is, it stops being a wound once you stop picking at it. No? I tell people the story when they ask why I don't talk about my ex. I say, she wanted me to disappear quietly. Then I grin. So instead, I became unforgettable.